I apologize.
Okay, are we now on record?
We are.
Welcome to the July 9th meeting of the Citizen Review Board. We will start with approval of the June meeting minutes. Ian made a motion to approve the meeting minutes and Cynthia seconded it. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, board members, please unmute yourselves. If we can't see you, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, carried unanimously. The chairperson's report. I'd like to introduce our guests that are here. Anybody who's not a board member, Roberto is our office assistant. Twiggy Ballou from NAN and Spark is here. Yusuf Abdul Qadir from Spark. Mered Ballou from Last Chance for Change and Spark. Is that right?
No, from Rebirth Syracuse, Mered Billy from Rebirth Syracuse, not Last Chance for Change.
I'm sorry. Thank you. TJ, can you say hello?
Hello.
And you're from?
BLM Syracuse.
Thank you. Call-in user 2. Is that Ruth?
Yes, that's Ruth.
Call-in user 3. Call-in user 3, who is it? Okay, we'll let that go. I think I've called on everybody at this point. Okay, for chairperson's report, I want to give a couple updates on some things that are going on. Most of you have been following the news with the demonstrators that have been marching and demonstrating in Syracuse. It'll be, I believe, 40 days tomorrow that they've been demonstrated. I sent the board a little over a week ago the People's Agenda for Police Reform for your information. We'll be discussing one of those issues later having to do with the CRB. A couple of the things that have happened. Mayor Walsh proclaimed a number of initiatives in the city. The most directly relevant to the CRB's concerns is that he enacted by executive order the right to know law, which we've been advocating for a while. And the CRB has been pushing for changes that would make a shift in the police demeanor towards community members. So that's one positive issue. Another one that is, I think, going to be affecting us, Governor Cuomo issued some proclamations with a couple things of significance. One was repealing 50A, which was a provision that allowed police departments to keep discipline records confidential. That won't take place until 120 days from when the proclamation was issued, which I think was about June 12th. So we're going to get legal advice over the next couple of months to see what that will actually mean for our confidentiality issues. And we've spoken to our attorney and the City Corporation Council about getting clarification on that. Another important thing, I think, in Governor Cuomo's order is that he has directed all municipalities to redesign their police force for 2020. They have, I think it's 9 months till next April 1st. He said he's requiring all municipalities in the state to redesign their whole law enforcement system. It's not clear yet what the governor expects or what Syracuse is planning to do with that, but I think there is an opportunity for the CRB to make sure we're involved in that process as well as citizen involvement. So those are the main updates I want to talk about tonight. I think that there will be changes coming to police accountability in Syracuse. There will be changes to how the CRB is perceived and how much attention is paid to the CRB. We don't know yet how that'll be, but some things are going to happen in Syracuse that will be different. Any questions about any of those? Okay. Renette, are you ready for administrator's report?
Peter, give me just one moment. I'm helping someone to log into our meeting. Give me just
Sorry.
one moment.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to pause for just a minute. Lori, you have a question? Please unmute yourself.
And we may or may not know the answer to this question. In regards to the repeal of 50A, will we be able to get that disciplinary record without a FOIL request, or is a FOIL request required?
Yes, we'll be able to get 58 information without a FOIL request because that's part of our duties. So
Okay.
every time with regard to a particular case, we will receive that information as part of the case with regard to their disciplinary record. We actually just got one yesterday on a new case that they finished investigating. They provided us with the some of the history from each officer saying whether or not they had previous.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll kind of go from there as we continue to move along and see what else we
Right.
need to do.
Okay, thank
Okay,
You're
Renette,
welcome.
you ready to go ahead with administrator's report?
Sure. So the activity report, we have received one new complaint in the office in the month of June, but we've sent out several complaint packets, but have yet to receive them back. So we sent out 5 complaint packets, 5 or 6 in the month of June. And so we're waiting for those to come back. Our monthly financial report has remained the same. We did spend the $650 for me to attend the Dago Law Group Advanced Internal Affairs Training. I began taking that training today, and it will last for the next 4 weeks. And I will be signing up for the NACO training that's coming up as well. I wanted to introduce Vian. Is a new intern that we have in the office. He is currently studying at the University of Buffalo. He is from On Point for College. He is one of our new interns. He'll be with us until August. He is on, so I'll give him just a moment. Vivian, if you'd like to speak. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Viana. As she said, I'm intern at the Citizen Review Board, and it's a pleasure meeting you, although it's on virtual, but yeah, I'm happy.
Welcome, Vian.
Thank
Glad
you.
to have you.
Thank you.
So we will, we also have another intern. Her name is Tatiana Flores, and she is at Sage College. She would be an intern as well. Given the nature of the community during this pandemic, we're working half days in the office together, and then they're doing some remote work from home. Part of it's attending this meeting, and then doing some other research with regard to everything that's going on throughout the country related to police reform and things of that nature. So it's actually a good time to kind of be in a remote setting and not having to stay in the office. All right, the next part of my report has to do with the June case statistics. So we will be reviewing 5 cases in our executive session tonight. We are continuing to receive reports from the police department. We received 8 cases from 2017 the other day. And I'd like to mention that these cases had already been investigated by the Office of Professional Standards, but were never turned over to us. I have to look at the time frame for which they completed their investigation, and then how long it's taken them to merely send it over to our office. So I wanted to report that. So those cases will have to be those cases will be mixed in with the cases that we're currently trying to make sure that we are not outside of the 18-month deadline with regard to civil service law, so they'll be fluctuated in. And as you know, most of those cases are already outside of the 18 months deadline with regard to an officer to be disciplined. So we'll look and see whether or not the
She's
department
talking about it.
by itself was able to, if they initiated discipline without any sort of recommendation from the CRB, since they completed the investigation and it was not turned over to us. So we'll be looking at that. Be looking at that when I begin to review those cases. I have not provided any specific numbers as to the number of cases that are outstanding from 2017, 2018, and 2019, because they have been putting new people in the Office of Professional Standards. They have two sergeants there now. They are looking to hire another sergeant and put them in there. They have one lieutenant and they're looking to hire a civilian. So with that being said, they have been working through that process and they have been providing them. Some cases, I have noticed that I've had to resend them because they were not in their office for some particular reason, although I can show that we did turn them over to the Office of Professional Standards in a timely manner. They are being provided to them again. So many of the outstanding cases will now be 2020 cases that they will be reviewing, as they will have 2020 case numbers, but they were filed in the previous years. And I think that about sums up my report. I want to give enough time for community engagement and our community partners and things of that nature. So if anybody else has any questions, I'll feel free to answer at that point in time.
Yeah, I will do my best to watch the chat. If anyone has a question, please put it in the chat. If I can't see you raise your hand, I'll try to watch that for questions. We've been looking into the possibility of when we can open hearings, and we have some progress on that. Renette, could you address that?
Yes, so hearings, we are looking to hold them remotely at this point. And that is going to be in a number of different ways. We can either utilize this same function that we have currently with regard to WebEx, and we can set a person up in the WebEx room if they do not have the proper technology to do it at home, and they can appear in our hearings room on the WebEx, and then the hearings panel can appear in our office on WebEx, so that we are still, you know, practicing social distances, you know what I mean? And we're not doing that. That would be the same way that the officers could appear. If they are subpoenaed by the CRB, they can appear in their attorney's office with them or someplace in the department utilizing WebEx and do it that way. Or we could utilize the telephone call-in feature of WebEx, but I'm a little concerned about that with regard to the complainant, because I think that it's important to be able to see the complainant's face at the time that they provide us with testimony related to their complaint. So I would rather have them in the office with their appearance. And if they are going to have an attorney with regard to the officers, I'd rather have them appear. So I really would rather everybody to appear you know, by video, opposed to just a call in when we're doing the hearing. So we're wanting to make sure we think about all the technological factors that they may bring. So that's where we are currently with regard to that. And that was just kind of thought about this week as to how we can move forward. Because right now, I believe we have at least 10 cases that are ready to go to a hearing. And that may include the cases that we have tonight. So we will be looking to get those done expeditiously. So just be prepared with regard to that. It looks like there's a question. Outstanding cases continue to be a problem due to delays or cases being turned over in a timely manner. This issue must be addressed in order for officers to be held accountable. Agreed. So we are waiting to have a public safety committee meeting, which will be held sometime this month. I believe we received the date of July the 20th as a potential date, but I'm waiting for the confirmation. But as soon as we get that date, that will be some of the things that's going to be addressed at the time of our Public Safety Committee meeting. We'll discuss that at that point in time, and a number of other things. But we will be sure to share that on our City of Syracuse Citizens Review Board Facebook page as well, when we have the finalized date for our Public Safety Committee meeting before the council.
Thank you. Okay, try to move quickly. Committee reports, community outreach, and public education. Any news from that?
So I have been suggesting for about a month now that we figure out a date in which the CRB can do some sort of community outreach. Wear our mask and use the banner and things of that nature, and get out and pass out information around sides of town. As of yet, we have not coordinated a particular date in which we can do that. But I think that it's important and it's necessary, and we can, maintain social distance and wear our mask and be careful. I see Cliff.
Yeah. Cliff, go ahead.
You're unmuted, Cliff. Go ahead.
You're muted again.
Go ahead, Cliff. Go ahead, Cliff.
Okay, so I want to connect with you. I want to connect with you on doing that. So add me to the list right now, as far as getting together with you, and we can do it as soon as you're ready to. Okay, as far as that outreach project that you're speaking about.
Okay, thank you, Cliff.
All right.
Thanks. Okay, board developments and training. We put that on hold. We're going to try to set up a WebEx training with Bob Stewart, whom you'll remember spoke to the board last year. And we're going to try to do a couple of shorter sessions with him. So that's on hold for the moment, but we will follow up.
Dan, go ahead.
Hi. In terms of board education and training, I think we should set up a schedule whereby each board member gets a chance to spend a significant amount of time riding around in a police car.
We had scheduled that before. Some board members took advantage of that and others did not, but we have that opportunity. It's still open.
Well, I think we ought to make, I don't think we ought to make it a choice. I think we ought to make it mandatory.
Okay, so we have a document that board members sign up that lists their obligations, and I would infer that you'd like to have that added to it. What we can do for now is ask people to sign up. We can contact the patrol office and tell them we'd like to start setting people up, and then hopefully we'll be able to sign up most of the board voluntarily to do that. But we can consider adding that to the list of obligations for board members too. Cynthia?
Go ahead, you're not paused.
Okay, so I just want to, in regards to that, I thought I put in a request for that maybe about, like, not too long after I got on the board, of riding around and observing what they're doing out on the street. So I don't know what happened to that.
Okay.
Okay.
I will reach out to them and get what dates are available, and then I'll share that with you. I know before we rode with the crime reduction team, that's who we had set up before, and they are no longer out. So I have to see which other detail we'll be able to go out with, but that's who we used to go out with. So I will follow up with the chief in our meeting. We have one before the end of the month, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
And I just want to say, I'm sorry, just one more thing. It appears that even though we're talking a few months away, the Westcott thing is going to be canceled.
Right.
Yes. They canceled all festivals, I think, until September is what I think I posted on Facebook, something around there, that they canceled them until September. So that's why I said I would like to try to do some sort of activities and things, because if they're not going to have any sort of events that we typically participate in, we need to figure out something. Did you have something else, Cynthia?
Just one other question. I didn't know how I got unmuted. Oh, but anyways, are we not allowed to like set up a table at the Syracuse Community Center on South Ave?
Sure, you can set up a table whenever you would like and let the office know when you want, how many materials you would like. I'm quite sure the director there would allow us to do that. I just know currently I don't have the time to do it myself. And so that's what I've been looking for, is when the board members are available to do some of these outreach, because we've got a lot going on. So give me a couple of dates that you would like to do that, and I'll reach out to the director and see what dates work for him.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, government relations. We had a meeting on July 1st. Renette, you want to address that?
Yes, so we had a meeting on July 1st, and it went, I don't want to say as usual, but it went over some of the things that we have been continuously looking at with the repeal of 50A. We talked about how this affects us moving forward. The confidentiality agreement that we were looking and considering is most likely not warranted at this point. But we are still determining that specifically, but we do believe that the confidentiality is definitely going to need some tweaks if in fact if it's still relevant. So we talked about that. We talked about remote hearings and, talking about when we could get those reestablished. So we just went over that. We talked about how City Hall and City Hall Commons are still closed to the public at this point. But Kristen was going to reach out to the coronavirus task force through the mayoral office and find out when they plan to restart that, when they plan to open it to the public. So we have to still wait as of right now. There was questions related to sealing orders. We had a particular case in which part of the records were sealed, and we had a question as to why we did not receive them. We have since learned that this particular case, they are going to investigate the case more thoroughly and see whether or not that is going to change the fact of them providing us with the sealing order previously. We talked about the checklist that have been created between the two parties for the Office of Professional Standards to advise the CRB what they reviewed in their file, what they had to review, and things of that nature. And so far, the Office of Professional Standards stated that that checklist is helpful for them to keep track of what they are to turn over based on what they review and things of that nature. We talked about deadlines, and Lori pointed out the fact about grievances being filed related to discipline that has been issued at the time of this pandemic. And so far, no grievances have requested any extensions or anything. So that's why we're still looking at the 18 months and how that's going to affect us. We talked again about modifying language in the ordinance and how would we do that related to hearings and deadlines, and looking at the hearing procedure and what parts of it are directly related to legislation and what parts of it were created by our attorney. Let's see. I think that is the best report I can give you with regard to that. Our next meeting is going to be April 19th at 2:00. So please mark your calendars, those board members that will be attending. August 19th, I'm sorry, August 19th at 2:00. I don't know why I wanted to be April.
You wish.
But it's August 19th at 2:00. We will be having another one of those meetings. Just so that the public is aware, those meetings include our attorney, Ryan Seeker from Boucher Holstein, Kristen Smith for the city. We invite the common councilors to attend that meeting from the Public Safety Committee. And it also is a member of the Office of Professional Standards, and the chief attends that meeting as well. And I think that that is it. If we want to move on to police relations.
Yeah, next one, please. Thank you.
We will be speaking to the new recruits again, as we did last time. It will be on July 31st at 8:00 in the morning. We will speak with the new recruits, advising them about the CRB and answering any questions they may have related to that. And I believe that is it.
I think it is. Okay,
Lori,
thank you.
did you have anything to add to that other report?
Only that I was disappointed in their lack of progress in getting the information that we requested. I think we should have had more answers at that meeting than we did.
Okay, thank you.
Tina, any comment? Okay. So I sent to the board yesterday what I said I would like to make a proposal tonight, and the presentation from Spark on the people's agenda and on one item in particular related to CRB. Yusuf is going to speak to us. Yusuf and Twiggy, I just sent you an email that has the wording of the proposal, which is basically the CRB item from the people's agenda. It starts out, the Citizen Review Board calls upon the Syracuse administration to draft and pass legislation. From there on, it's the language from the people's agenda. Legislation that empowers the Citizen Review Board with enforcement of the recommendations for discipline when they sustain findings of misconduct while preserving the body as a citizen-led review board. So I'm going to let Yusuf speak, and if anybody else from Spark, I'll let Yusuf ask people to add things if they want. If we have questions, we'll have time for those. Thanks, Yusuf.
Thank you. Thank you, Citizens Review Board. I have had the pleasure, the distinct honor to address you before. Always I think it's been very something that I think has been really, I know I'm getting feedback and I don't know. So let's pause for a moment. You might be. Well, to get to the issues that what we're trying to do is about an uncontrolled mandate that existed from the institution of the Citizens Review Board from its beginning. When the CRB began, it began community outcries to injustice, community outcries to misconduct, community outcries to police brutality. And the response was a citizens review. The idea was citizen oversight over law enforcement in the city of Syracuse. The challenge that we've had over the years is that there have been constant attacks and threats to the CRB's ability to fulfill that mandate. In 2011, Assemblywoman Pamela Hunter, as a kind of last effort on her stint as a council member, expanded and reconstituted the CRB with new powers. And those new powers included powers for subpoena, powers for investigators and medical examiners, and powers that really helped to make the CRB have, is what they say, the CRB is only as powerful as the community's belief in its ability to hold officers accountable. And what we've seen time and time and time and time and time again is that there has been delay, obfuscation, and really unnecessary impediments to the CRB's ability to hold law enforcement accountable. Whether it's the Office of Professional Standards not sharing information, whether it's, as was expressed in the beginning of this meeting, having a nearly 2-year delay from Internal Affairs, from sharing information from their investigations, it actually precludes from an officer being able to be held truly accountable because 2 mechanisms are expired. The 18-month, and in addition to the notice of claim timeline expires, according to the union contract, any disciplinary issues that are within an officer's personnel record would have been expunged within 24 months. And so if you actually have evidence to show that an officer has a pattern and a practice with respect to engaging in misconduct, that officer won't be held accountable. That information wouldn't be accessible. And as you know intimately well, and perhaps more than I do, though I think I know a little bit about this, there has been significant intransigence on behalf of many police chiefs. In fact, even when the CRB sustains a finding in the most egregious cases, what we see is that the chief, if they actually do fulfill the recommendations, that they may not even tell you that they've done so. And then often what we've seen is something that TJ articulated quite well at our people, and I want to just correct, it's the People's Agenda for Policing, not for police reform. But as TJ articulated quite eloquently at the forum last Thursday, that even when there are sustained findings, they may not be adequate with respect to the issue that the officer's misconduct represents. What we're saying is we don't think the CRB's job is to deal with SROs in schools. That's an issue with respect to the school board. We don't think the CRB's job is to deal with defunding the school, the police department. That's an issue for the Common Council, the mayor, and the community to address. What we're saying is there should be real citizen-driven oversight of the misconduct, abuse of power and authority of the Syracuse Police Department, and that oversight has to be enhanced. That the Citizens Review Board should have the powers that people have long fought for it to have for decades. That it shouldn't be that when a new person comes to the Common Council, like Steve Thompson, and tries to attempt to use a fast-track maneuver to scuttle and reduce the powers of the CRB, that those powers won't be reduced again. That in fact, the Citizens Review Board doesn't just have the authority to get the information with, by the way, I want to correct the record. 50A never precluded you from getting access. They have just denied you by misappropriately telling you that 50A precludes you. Section 4 of 58 always stipulated that you had that legal authority. And this is a further demonstration that they have grossly violated the trust of their office. When Corporation Counsel misappropriates, misinterprets, in fact, is disingenuous to tell you that you do not have authority that is pretty explicitly articulated in Section 4 of 50A that has now been repealed. So even when the law is on your side, even when a court of the law says that you have this legal authority, even when the courts determine this, they will still delay, they will still obfuscate, they will still create intransigence, they will still try to impede on what is the people's right to have oversight over law enforcement when they engage in excessive force, in incidents of demeanor, and abuse of power and authority. What this demand calls for is that the CRB can't stand on the sidelines any longer. The CRB has to be affirmatively involved in calling for the Common Council to enhance its powers. The Citizens Review Board is not going to write legislation. The Citizens Review Board isn't going to do more than say we endorse the idea that we as a body to hold law enforcement accountable should have the ability to ensure that when we make a recommendation, that that recommendation is fulfilled. Of course, the devil is in the details. Of course, we have to work it out. Of course, we need to go through the legislative process. But we shouldn't use process as an excuse to impede on what is your ability right now in this moment to say that you endorse this idea. We are calling on you to endorse this. The community is encouraging you to do so. I will tell you from the standing of the community that the CRB doing this will go a long way to rebuilding and repairing the trust that you need to do your power. We urge you to do this, and I want to allow the others who are here an opportunity to speak. And if you have any questions, I'm available for answers.
So I just want to say really quickly that thank you, Yusuf, so much for your articulation of everything over the years and for your continuous support and continuing to educate the board every time you come to a meeting. We have continued to tell them that we were entitled to that information, but we continue to face those strongholds from, from all sides. Let's just put it that way. With regard to us continuing to say that very fact that you stated, that based upon Section 4, when it says if it's part of your duty, you are to receive it, we've been telling them that consistently, and they've consistently not listened to us. So I just want to make sure that anytime we've even had public safety committee meetings, even at the time that we've had budget meetings, we've continued to say that we are entitled to this information, and continuously they said that we were not. And there were no other mechanisms other than for us probably to sue again, would have been a way for us to get it, until they in their mind felt that repealing of 50A would get us there. So I just wanted to point that out. Twiggy, would you like to speak?
Am I muted now? Okay, thank you. Yes, so as Yusuf said, just to expound upon that, when one of the things that we have learned wholeheartedly is that not just the backlog of cases, the intimidation that people feel when something happens or when an encounter happens that causes them not to report it, that causes them not to come down to your office and make a report. My son is also on the call. He had an experience before the CRB became under Raynette, but there's still some of the same issues. And what we are interested in doing is making sure that you are just not allowed, you are just not entitled, but you have that right under the law. And making sure that our public officials understand, again, that it's the people's agenda, right? They were elected into office by us to do those things that throughout their campaign speeches, so forth and so on, they said that they would do. We particularly as a group on our own, and I think most of the people in Spark, because we've been talking about these issues so long, poll people on where do you stand with giving the CRB more power. You were in a meeting with us, Raynette, with the mayor, common councilor, deputy mayor, where they talked about when they were hiring the new police chief, these things that they would put into order so that the CRB's office would have a better, smoother relationship. One was that training of police chiefs that most people from CRBs go to, and that was supposed to be a part of what they were doing to make sure that community or a relationship was built closer between the SPD and the CRB. And as a community, we let them slide without doing it. So this is where the rubber meets the road. We're not only asking for you all to get enhanced powers, but you all need more investigators, more funding to do the job that's really associated with the job that you have to do. And full funding must come from the city of Syracuse so that you're fully staffed, fully funded. And if you need 2-3 investigators, that's what you get. with the amount of complaints coming in, the amount that you're able to get, even including the backlog, and with the wherewithal from citizens saying this for the past 4 years, there should be no reason why when Yusuf says, or we say collectively as Spark, $20 million cut, that over the next 5 or 10 years, that a few million of that goes to the CRB to really make sure that they are strengthened. So we can strengthen you with policy and a few pieces of paper, but if you don't have the money that it actually takes to run the office, you're still in a deficit. So that's Nan's position, as well as with Spark too. Not only giving you the entitlement or the powers that you need, but making sure that funding is there in full so that you can do the actual job that needs to be done and all those steps associated.
Thank you, Twiggy.
So I know we have board members who want to speak. This is the community organization's time. So we're going to stay with them for a few minutes, and then board members will have a chance to respond or ask questions. So who else from Spark or other community would like to speak?
Mered, did you want to speak? I unmuted you. I think not.
Yeah,
TJ, oh, Mered,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. So I'll go. What I had wanted to say was that as a citizen and African American man, my own encounter is representative of hundreds of complaints filed by Black and Brown people against the SPD. I've had my own personal experience too. But now I'm driven to speak out due to the community concerns related to police misconduct, excessive force, excessive ticketing, and by the overall a lack of trust between the Syracuse Police Department and the communities they serve. And to that end, my group, Rebirth Syracuse, me and Hassan Bloodworks group, is a new member of Spark, and we're glad to be. But as we have the same collective focus, and our efforts are related to pushing forth the people's agenda. We want to strengthen the Citizens Review Board. We want to strengthen their authority to investigate police misconduct, ensure officers answer questions when subpoenaed, and the recommended course of action and disciplinary recommendations when that problem arises. Also, it's me and some of the protesters that I talked to. We feel that the Citizens Review Board has not been very effective at causing reform, as they are often co-opted by the police departments whose investigations they are supposed to review. And thus, they wind up agreeing with the police department in all instances. Okay, I'm still on. That's all I had to say right there.
Thank you, Mered. TJ or anyone else, did you want to speak?
TJ, you're unmuted. TJ, did you want to speak? Where did he go?
Yeah. Can you see me?
Okay, go ahead. I
Okay.
can't see you, but we can hear. Yep, now we can see you. Go ahead, TJ.
Okay. So I just want to Yusuf did a great job of clearly articulating why we're pushing for more disciplinary power. And so at our meeting with the mayor last week, right? That was one of the things I really pushed, is that we don't just want it to be over, quote unquote, strengthening the Citizen Review Board, when we know that as long as your recommendations are only a suggestion, that's not actual accountability. So our take, as far as the people's agenda, like, our perspective is that we're not accepting anything less than what we put down on paper. And if anything, we expect more than what we put down on paper from the Syracuse administration. So our vision is really to see a Citizen Review Board that actually works and actually acts on the will of the community as they sound like they should do in title, and actually holding these public servants accountable to the jobs that they've been tasked to do, which to them includes killing, raping, murdering Black and Brown people in this community, right? So today, I would love to get, as Yusuf said, I would love to have the Citizen Review Board, publicly and unequivocally state that they fully endorse the people's agenda, for policing. And that doesn't mean that there won't be obstacles to things that have been stated on the agenda. That doesn't mean there won't be roadblocks from legal and financial standpoints. But what that means is that we can trust that in everything y'all do, it's working towards that goal with the rest of the community. That's what that means when you say that. So that's what I would love for y'all to do today. And in addition, I do want, like, in y'all responding to that, I would hope that for me, that would bring clarity that y'all are fully in support of the idea of strengthening and giving y'all disciplinary power so we can actually hold these police accountable, not just make recommendations. So I think that's all I really have to say about that. And also, I think right now, right, I would say, you know, I only even learned of the Citizen Review Board probably 2 years ago. Never heard of them before. But even with that, okay. But even though I've never heard of them before, I'm sorry, it's cut off my video. Even though I never heard of them before that, I've still, even prior to me hearing about the Citizen Review Board, I know family members who had terrible experiences with the police department. So I think right now, part of something that will have to come is because the general community doesn't really have a lot of faith in the Citizen Review Board. I'm just be honest. They see it as, you know, I go there, I'm probably complain, ain't nothing gonna happen to the officers. They ain't gonna go nowhere. And we know y'all can't even force them to do nothing. So I think the only way to really address that is for the Citizen Review Board itself to fully say, we want and are demanding, just like the rest of the community, which y'all are a part of, the actual power to employ the will of the community, and in every form and fashion that takes. So that's pretty much all I have. Can everybody hear me? I think
Yes.
Yes, we did. Thank
Okay.
Jay.
Thank you, TJ.
Other community members that would like to make a statement, please raise your hand or type something in the chat if I can't see you to let me know.
I just want to add one more thing quickly, because I think TJ really said it, quickly said it, and Red said it pretty well, is that, you know, what we're saying, to be clear, is that this demand is a part of an accountability mechanism that fulfills the community's interests. Your job as a civilian oversight body of law enforcement has been hamstrung. And I don't oftentimes think that it's fully appreciated that we understand the limitations within the CRB, but those limitations are set not just within the confines of the legislation, but are set because of the way with which the departments and the legal department in particular do not cooperate in the spirit or in the letter of the law. And if we continue to have that relationship, you are effectively being defanged. You are effectively a token. And I'm not trying to reduce, and we're not trying to reduce the work that people are doing, the volunteer work that you all contribute. I think we all see that and notice that. But quite frankly, you're not as able to fulfill your mandate because of those impediments. And if we leave it to the administration, they have shown they're not going to do the work. If we leave it to somebody else, they're not going to do it. In fact, what they'll do is they'll work with common counselors like they did with Steve Thompson, like Kristen Smith and Corporation Counsel did with Steve Thompson 2 times to make sure the CRB's powers are reduced. That should be a demonstration that it is time for the CRB to be empowered, to be uplifted, to be enhanced. Because if you're not going to be doing that, what's going to happen is they're going to decommission you, they're going to replace you, and they're going to put something else that they'll call a Citizens Review Board, but in effect is a superficial body that is not going to do the real work of the citizens. And so when they say to fulfill the mandate of the citizens, they don't mean to be unfair. You do a proper investigation, you hire an investigator that's fully staffed, you look at a medical examiner's report that you have the authority to pay for or that is on staff, You have administrative assistants and a staff able to manage and administer the independent authority that the CRB is, and you're able to come to a conclusion after a hearing. And when you come to a fair process, because again, we believe in due process, and you sustain a finding, then the officer is held accountable with the recommendations. That is then enforceable. And if you find that a decision is not sustained, then you've exonerated an officer. And so what we're saying is this is a process that's fair, that's reflective of what's best practice, and it's something that is the next iteration of how we as a community should be addressing law enforcement oversight, particularly by civilian bodies and citizen bodies.
Thank you, Youssef. Would any of the caller, I see the different callers on here, so I'm gonna unmute you by caller and ask if you have any comment to make. So I'm going with caller number 4 right now. Caller number 4. Did you have a comment? Caller number 5. Did you have a comment? Caller number 5. Caller number 3. Do you have a comment? Hassan Bloodworth, do you have a comment?
No, ma'am. Red Bill, you already spoke on Rebirth's behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Lohman, do you have a comment? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
We just had a couple quick questions just about the backlog. Normally we would pull you aside after a meeting with Syracuse.com. I was wondering if you could tell me how old the oldest case is that's in the backlog at this moment.
So we have cases from 2017. So the incident happened, the incident was filed with the CRB. I don't want to say the incident occurred because some people filed complaints with the CRB and the incident happened the year prior.
Right.
So the case was filed with the CRB in 2017.
The police department told us today that even if a case takes longer than 18 months to investigate, that they do run it down, they do investigate completely. I was wondering if you could tell us what happens after 18 months has elapsed. Is there a finding, even if there is no discipline, and what happens to that finding?
Yes, we will still investigate the complaint just as we did previously. Most of the complaints from 2017, I have already investigated and spoken with the person, the complainant, and I was just waiting for the Office of Professional Standards report. So we will still investigate that. We will still go throughout the same process that we would typically go through in terms of the board reviewing it and deciding whether or not it goes to a hearing. And we're still going to go do everything that we would typically do, although it's outside of the 18 months.
And as far as the police department is concerned, though, do they come to any conclusions about the alleged conduct of the officer? Or do they just run it down and make no determination because citing the fact that it's 18 months old?
I am not sure. As of right now, we have not received a complaint back. I don't believe that is outside of the 18 months. So I'm not sure what the report is going to say at the end as to what, if they're going to say, we would have recommended some sort of discipline, but it's outside of the 18 months. I'm not sure what it's going to say. That is yet to be determined.
Patrick, I'm going to ask you to call the office if you have more questions. This is time we'd like to give to the community organization that showed up, unless there's anything urgent you need to know right now. Are you okay with that?
Just respectfully, I assume this was a public comment period and we are members of the public.
This is a community organization's time on the agenda. Public comment will follow this.
Okay, we might save our questions for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I think we have another LM.
Linda Malik, any
Hi, this is
comment?
Linda Malik. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I also am part of Spark, so I would just like to amplify. The others have already spoken, but I'm also the community organizer with ACTS, which is the Alliance of Communities Transforming Syracuse. And so we are a representative body of faith leaders throughout the city and also in our suburban communities. And the Clergy Caucus, ACTS Clergy Caucus, has put together a letter of demands around police accountability, and the strengthening of the CRB is also part of that. And I wanted to just lift up the fact that there are well over 1,000 people who are interested in this in our community. And it is important to note that this is not just a handful of local folks who are trying to make some movement. This is deeply representative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've heard from all the.
So I have to jump in one more time. I apologize.
Go ahead, you could, Yusuf.
Also, I want to put into context, 3 million people around the country and around the world have now seen the video of our discussion last Thursday. And so 3 million people are agreeing with what we're saying. And I think that's really important to stipulate, is because we in Syracuse have an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to become a national model. And imagine what you all are doing as a part of responding to this national crisis. That you're saying that we hear the pain that not just is attributed to George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Tamir Rice or the other incidences of misconduct around the country that have become nationalized as well as ignored, but also in our own very city of Syracuse, that when we see incidents of police misconduct, that we as a Citizens Review Board are standing firmly with the community. I can't impress enough upon you how historic this issue is. I did not think that this would get 3,000 views, from Common to D.L. Hughley to Sean King to apparently Chamillionaire to many, many other people who are widely recognized. I did not expect. We all knew how powerful what we were doing was. I don't think we understood how powerful this moment in history is. So the question goes back to you all. What side of history are you going to be on? Are you going to be on the side of history that affirms and recognizes the moment that you're in? Or are you going to be on the wrong side of history that ignores what's happening and is stumbling to catch up? And I think what you have a chance to do is to be on the right side, but to be a part of those that are pushing us forward. And that's the last thing I thought was really important to mention.
Thank you. So we return to the formal part of the board meeting where board members can speak. We want to thank the community organization. I'd like to put the motion on the table and then give board members a chance to respond to it. And I will remind board members to keep your comments very brief. This is not going to be a back and forth between the board and a community organization. This is now a discussion between board members about the proposal that is on the table. So I'll read the language and then ask somebody to make the motion. The Syracuse Citizen Review Board calls upon the Syracuse City Administration to draft and pass legislation that empowers the Citizen Review Board with enforcement of their recommendations for discipline when they sustain findings of misconduct while preserving the body at a citizen-led board. Would someone make the motion to approve that resolution, please? Cynthia, and could we have a second from Lori? Okay, again, I'm going to ask board members to be very brief in their comments. We have other business to move on to, and we'd like to make a decision about this tonight. I know Dan had his hand up. Dan, would you like to speak?
So give me just 1 second. If you are on the phone, I'm gonna unmute you so that you can speak, and then I'm gonna put you back, because when we have them all unmuted at one time, we get all that backlog. So I'm gonna unmute you all at a time, and I think we're gonna start with, we'll start with Cynthia. She's unmuted right now, and then we'll move from there. Hold on 1 second, Cynthia. Okay, go ahead.
I didn't have any additional questions. I said yes, I accept what he's saying.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Dan?
Yes. First of all, let me state that I've worked in and out and around government for 48 years. I'm aware of the frustrations involved in trying to move government. And I'm well aware of the frustrations involved with the CRB and its quest to become more powerful. The problem is, of course, is that we are not the police department. We are the CRB. We are an outside agency. The police department will make decisions regarding the police department. And I am hard pressed to believe that any chief of police or mayor, for that example, is going to give up part of that power so that we can intervene. And one of the main reasons for that reluctance is the fact that we only get complaints that are sent to us directly. I don't know how many numbers of complaints go in on a daily basis or a weekly basis to the Office of Professional Standards. If they get 10 times more than we do, then they have the authority to take care of that, just like they have the authority to take care of the ones that we examine. I believe in getting more power in terms of repealing 50A. I realize all the legal implications involved there, and I think we should have more money, and I think we should have more investigative abilities, and I think we should have more access to police records. But in terms of us dictating to somebody what the discipline is going to be, as much as that sounds good to me, and it may sound good to you, it ain't going to happen. And I would rather see a realistic approach, and that would be an approach whereby the CRB and the police department sort of join forces and work together on this thing. Now, at first, that's going to be a difficult proposition, but I think if both sides are fair, both sides are reasonable, I think it can be done. Worse things have been accomplished. And I just don't think that we should have legislation dictating that we should be in charge of the discipline for somebody that the police department takes care of 90% of them and we take care of 10% of them, or whatever the numbers happen to be. That was a guess. So I think that the motion that's on the floor right now should be tabled until such time as we can have serious and productive discussions about what our position is actually going to be, so that it's a workable position and not some fantasy that crosses our mind. And I think that if we ask this, they're going to deny the legislation. But if we approach it from a compromise situation, I think. Pardon me? Somebody said something. Anyway, I just think that this ought to be tabled. We shouldn't make a decision tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, who else on
Lori?
the board would like to speak? Lori, go ahead.
Lori?
I don't think it should be tabled. Just want to point that out. I don't have anything else. I'm in support.
Thank you, Lori. Cliff?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted.
So, I agree with Yusef and everybody that spoke today, from Spark. I believe that when an officer crosses that line of the law and does misconduct, my position has always been and always will be that officer should be held accountable. So as a board member, I agree with everything that was spoke as far as the officers being held accountable, and as far as us as a board representing the citizens of Syracuse being held accountable. I believe that we are doing the best we can, but we need that community support as far as that's concerned, and that's very important as well. And you know, I disagree. I believe with all of the things that are going on as far as accountability, as far as the police department is concerned, I think that we can make that happen. So I don't agree with tabling this motion as well. I think that we need to push forward and represent our community the way that we're supposed to.
Thank you, Cliff. I'm going to Mary Nelson next. Hold on, let me mute Cliff. Hold on. All right. Go ahead, Mary.
Everything. I'm full agreement with Cynthia and Cliff what they both said. We should go full speed ahead on this.
Thank you,
speed.
Mary.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm moving to Dana next. Go ahead, Dana.
I have nothing to say.
Hey, yeah, you don't need to
No,
make a comment. We're voting in a few minutes, so board members
Okay.
have a chance to vote. This is a chance to make a comment before the vote if you want.
Hold on, Peter. Let me just make sure I'm looking for Ruth, but I think she may have dropped off. I don't see her anymore. I'm just trying to make sure. Give me just a second. Let me run through these callers really quick and just make sure. I'm trying not to miss her.
Ruth was
Caller
called.
number 4. Nope. Hey, Ruth. Okay. We can hear you. Can you provide us with your comment?
I don't really have one.
Okay. Thank you, Ruth. All right, Peter, go ahead.
Okay.
Wait, let me see if this is Hatisha. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Let me see if this is Hatisha.
Go ahead.
Hatisha? Number 5, caller number 5. Hatisha? Okay. All right, go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so in a moment we'll call for a vote. I'd like to make my own comment. As you know, I try to distinguish acting as chair from also acting as a member of the board, since I do have a responsibility to vote. This is an easy one for me. We're not changing the law. We're not changing a practice. We're calling on the city administration to do that. And it's a message to the city from the CRB that will no longer allow the police department to continually ignore virtually every single discipline finding that we recommend. We do our job. We do a careful job. We investigate. We consider very carefully. We do our best to consider the officer's point of view, even though they refuse to speak to us, to answer any questions, to give us any further information. I'm still required to make a decision based on all the information I have as a CRB member. I feel very strongly it's time to respect the demonstrators, to respect the demands that people are making for more justice, and to pass this as a CRB. So that's my statement. Okay, I'm going to ask Dana to call the roll and ask everybody for a vote, yes or no, on this question. So Dana is now unmuted.
Okay, Ms. Brunson.
Yes.
Ms. Nelson.
Go ahead, Mary. Mary?
Hold on.
Okay, Hatisha's not here. Ms. Cutts.
Hold up. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry.
Go ahead. She says yes.
Okay. Ms. Cutts.
Ruth said yes.
McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Nelson.
Yes.
I say yes. Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Grenos. I don't know how to say that.
You got to say that again. We couldn't hear you.
No.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 yeses and 1 no.
Thank you very much. Peter,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, so the motion passes. We'd like to thank the people from Spark. And I'd like to thank the young people who have been leading this effort out on the streets, and Yusuf and Twiggy and others who've been leading this in the city for the last several years. We're going to take a few minutes for public comment before we go to executive session. I think, is anybody, Yusuf, would you like to make comment? We'll go to you first.
Yeah, I want to just acknowledge and uplift and thank you all for being the leaders that you knew that you could be. To Dan, not surprised, but disappointed. Disappointed because the language you use is offensive. I think we did a lot of work, and I would encourage you and I would implore you to watch the 3 hours and 45 minutes once people put together to look at the budget, to look at the analysis, to study the policy, to conduct research. This isn't a whimsical flim-flam idea that a bunch of whippersnappers pulled together. These were very serious people who thought about serious issues that affect Black and brown people in the city of Syracuse. Now, I know you've never been Black or brown, and I can appreciate that entirely. But as a Black man, when I hear your comments, it's disappointing. It's disappointing, and I'm proud of the other people on the board for hearing what people were saying. I'm disappointed in you because I think that you could have voted no, and that's totally fine. It's respectable. Your comments were offensive. And I think that I think you should take some time to think deeply about what it is that you mean when you tell people who come to you prepared, not with passion, though there's passion, not with emotion, though there's motion, with very clear, concise, specific, thought out work and strategy. I'm a professor at a university. I don't not my homework. We all do our homework. Everyone who was at that table did their homework. And so I encourage you to do your homework because I don't think we said that there is not going to be an obstacle. What we said is within your capacity. Your capacity is to put a resolution forward, and your colleagues did that. And if the council chooses not to do it, then it's incumbent upon us to hold the council accountable. If the mayor is not interested, it's incumbent upon us to hold him accountable. And the last thing I'll say about compromise, you can't compromise on justice. You either do the just thing or you don't. You either do the right thing or you don't. You can't be in between. You don't compromise. And the problem is that we've been compromising on justice for too long. You can't compromise on putting your knee on someone's neck. That's wrong. You can't compromise on chokeholds. That's wrong. And so either you believe in justice or you don't. And you can't stand firmly for justice, kind of equivocating as you did. So it's disappointing, and I see your hands, and I respect your hands, but this is the public comment period. And as the public, I'm just commenting that I'm proud of everyone who spoke, and I'm disappointed at, quite frankly, what I perceive to be cowardice. Thank you. I defer all to you. Have a good evening.
All right, I'm going to unmute Chris Libinati, and then we'll go back to Patrick Lohman.
I'm also, I'll cede to Pat because we're gonna ask the same stuff. So.
Okay, thank you.
And we also have Twiggy at some point, right?
Did you want to comment again, Twiggy?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I want to thank you all first for having the courage to do the work that you do in the first place, but also having the courage to listen to a group of citizens that some of us were involved by feet on the ground. Some of us were involved by having family members that were very instrumental in making sure that Syracuse had some sort of citizen review board. So I want to thank all of you all for the service that you've been doing. But I also want to address that we have clients that come to us that are in common. And some of the comments that one of your board members just made is directly one of the reasons why we believe that some people don't show up and don't bring their cases up. Because if you don't walk in my shoes, it's kind of hard for you to feel what a police encounter is like when it's me, right? Or when it's my husband, or when we have children in the car. It's always an assumption that we're doing something wrong rather than we are victims of egregious things. I would implore you all that, as Raynette said, she was getting training, that some of you all need to implore upon your board members that they need cultural sensitivity training, right? So even if you don't agree with it, you don't have to do harm, but you can still agree to disagree and we can still move on. But as a Black woman with my son on the phone, I was the one that chimed in and then muted myself that said, fantasy, really? Fantasy? This is not fantasy. Most of us have law degrees. Some of us have other degrees and other things. And we've been working on this issue for 4 years, longer than some of you have been on the CRB. So I applaud you all that have taken bold steps to make sure that the community that made sure that this body, CRB, became an entity, really respects us as the community and takes forth our comments very seriously, because the same way that people voted on, they can get voted off. And I just want to be real clear that when you don't have cultural sensitivity and you're reviewing cases like a Mr. Bullock, so if you're afraid of the words that we're saying in this, and you're afraid of that man, you're just as uncomfortable as the police are with us, so you'll do harm. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to unmute Patrick Lohman. And then TJ, let me know in the comment section if you have something else you'd like to say.
Thank you. We heard from the police department that there are 47 cases in the backlog. Is that accurate?
47 cases from what year?
27 through today, 2017 through today.
No, that is wildly inaccurate. We don't know what that number's for, but it's nowhere near. If I remember the last chart I saw, it's almost 100.
It's 100 cases that are older than 18 months by which, so there's no discipline possible.
It's 100 cases for 17, 18, and 19 that we know of, that we're getting from Office of Professional Standards. Almost 100. We don't know, by the way, you asked earlier, how far back does that go? We have no idea from 2016 back if there are cases that never got to CRB.
Right.
And we also don't know, we have no guarantee for anybody in the police department that that list really represents all the cases we haven't seen yet.
We're focusing in on what we believe is 47 cases for which discipline is now impossible because 18 months elapsed. And we just want to make sure that you.
Hold on a second. Let me look at my report. Give me one second.
And let me address an earlier question you had, Patrick. If discipline is impossible, our general policy is we still hear the cases, we still do the investigation, we still make a determination and a recommendation for a couple of reasons. One is all those cases go into our annual report. And so it makes a difference, for example, if there is a number of officers who have been, who the finding of misconduct has been upheld. That makes a difference in our annual report. It also makes a difference in the recommendations we make every year to the police department. So the cases are important whether or not there will be discipline for a particular officer, simply because we couldn't get the information from the department on time.
I guess I am asking more questions about the 47. Renette, were you able to confirm that, or are you still looking at it?
So I'm looking at, so just so you know, every day that we go by, a case deadline is going to end, okay, in terms of that. So it goes based upon the date that the incident occurred. So we just missed another case that was, the deadline was July the 4th. So I'm looking at on this case, now mind you, this list that we're talking about are cases that came through the CRB's office that we can account for.
Right.
So based upon what I'm seeing as of right now that are outside the 18-month time frame, I have I would say we're at about 45. But
Okay.
that's just backlog. Again, those are 18 months outside. So that's already sad enough. You have 45 cases for which you are outside the 18-month time frame for which you've had enough time to investigate. Okay. And then we move along and we have a total of 93 cases on the backlog because in 2019 we received 100 cases. So I don't know if you want to, I don't know if 44, 45 makes you feel good, but it doesn't make us feel good as to the number of cases that are outside the 18-month timeline. But if that's what they want to give you, sure, let's go with 47. And they want to admit that, I don't know, but sure, go with that.
They did admit that, and that's what they said, and that's why I wanted to run it past you. You know, that interests us because we understand that there are 9 use of force complaints.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. So what was I at, 45?
Yeah.
$46, $47, $48. I'll go with 48.
Okay.
Okay, Patrick, any other questions?
Could you broadly characterize, do they seem to be like minor allegations or are they, we understand there are 9 use of force cases in there.
Well, I mean, we really, okay, so I believe some of the cases that are outstanding from 2017 and 2018 are most of the egregious cases that we've seen.
Really?
And I've said that before. With regard to use of force, with regard to some other allegations, with regard to harassment, you know, things of that nature. So I'll go ahead and demeanors, allegations, racial profiling and racial bias. We'll go ahead and put that out there. But I've said that, I mean, some of the cases we would be looking at referring over to the DA's office once, once and those are some of the cases that we have that are pending for hearing as well. So
my last question.
Because
last question.
Wait, so
go ahead.
Hold on a second, because if you're talking about, that's 48 cases that are outstanding, meaning that we do not have the Office of Professional Standards report.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have cases that are pending hearings that are, you know what I mean, that could be referred to the DA's office as well. And those cases are egregious as well.
Last question. I appreciate all of your time.
Yeah.
Would you go so far as to say that the police department is deliberately slow walking egregious cases so that they will go beyond 18 months and discipline is not allowed?
I would say that that is an accurate assumption from some of the cases that are outstanding from 2017. I would think that that is an accurate assumption.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comment before we move to our executive session? Okay, I'd like to thank the members of the public for showing up.
I think
Renette?
TJ, did you have something else?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm grateful that y'all were willing and fully endorsed the people's agenda today. I think it's really symbolic, especially in the time we're in right now. And I think it's really gonna, as we continue on, I think it's really gonna reinvigorate and make clear to the community that we're all standing together on this, and we're all fully committed to making the community safer for Black and brown people in Syracuse. So I really do appreciate that. Moving forward, I definitely would hope that we can continue to amplify the challenges that the CRB are facing with the police and the administration's desire and continued actions to inhibit your authority. And I would hope that as we continue to implement actions and meetings and call for policy changes, that we can expect the support of the CRB to also be amplifying that as well on our end. So I think this is a powerful moment. I can't wait to see what more we accomplish going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Okay, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session. Twiggy, did you want to speak? You're waving. You're saying goodbye. Okay. We'll take a motion to go to an executive session so we can look at our cases. Would someone, board member, make that motion, please? Lori made the motion. Could I have a sec? Cliff made a second. All in favor?
Put that in front of the container.
Okay. Okay, we're now going to close this and go into
All
executive
right,
session.
I'm gonna
Annette,
stop
go
the,
ahead.
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now as we move into executive session, and then we'll come back thereafter.
Thank you all for